Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's going on, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Santa Barbara, the world, wherever you're listening? Welcome into the LA Football Podcast here on a beautiful Monday evening. What a weekend, huh? Wild weekend for LA football. 2-2 we go. 2-2. Trojans win in a commanding fashion after a bad start. Bruins lose in an absolute gut-wrenching, heartbreaking fashion. Rams come from behind, pull out the win against the Colts in Indianapolis, and the Chargers also lose a heartbreaker on a last walk-off field goal. We're going to get all into it. Just me, myself, and I tonight, guys. So hopefully I can give you enough excitement, passion to keep you around. Just hearing my voice for about 60 minutes or so, but excited to get into it all. Excited to get into it. I hope everyone's doing well out there. Thank you for tuning in. We are on the LA Football Network. As I said, this is the LA Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. You can also find us on the Believe Podcast Network. We're on YouTube at LAFB Network, and we're everywhere you listen to podcasts. Would appreciate it so much if you hit that subscribe button, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. That way you get notified when we come up with a new show 2 to 3 times a week. Plus, we're doing a lot of live stuff. Going to be doing a lot more live shows this coming weekend, beginning this coming weekend, I should say, with all of the LAFB Network crew. So, we're going to do some recaps live right after the games. Obviously, every Sunday morning, Stephen Haglin and I do LAFB Live. So, yeah, a lot more live stuff coming. But the LA Football Show comes to you every Tuesday and Friday. So, thank you for tuning in. As always, brought to you by betonline.ag. Head there today. Use the promo code NFL100 for a 100% welcome bonus. It's free money, guys. Free money, 100% welcome bonus. A lot of good game. I mean, the spiel. Just head there, bet on the games. I lost a lot of money this weekend, unfortunately. I always bet on these LA teams because I feel good about them. I felt good about them this weekend with the matchups. And unfortunately with the 2 losses, I usually parlay all 4 of them. And that hurt me. On Saturday, I had an 8-team parlay that 7 teams hit. In my lone loss that ruined the ball was UCLA Fresno State. And I didn't even take the points. I just took money line straight up because they were 10.5, I think, point favorites. And I was like, that's a little steep. I think Fresno State's got a good offense. I think I predicted them winning by 10, but I didn't feel good enough to put money on that, especially on an 18 parlay. So I just took the money line, and they lost with a walk-off touchdown. Well, no, I guess they technically had to kick it off again, but we'll get all into that. So anyway, betonline.ag, head there today and sign up with the code NFL100 for a 100% welcome bonus. All right, I'm gonna work backwards or recent to less recent. Instead of going what games happened first, I'm gonna start with the Chargers, and then we'll go Rams, and then we'll go Bruins, and then we'll finish with the Trojans. So for those of you listening at home or wherever you are, and if you don't want to listen to a specific segment, that's the order I'm going in. I'll put all the times in the description. Hopefully listen to the whole show so you can learn something about each of these teams. I know many of you, Rams fans probably hate the Chargers. Many of you Chargers fans probably don't like the Rams. Trojans fans and UCLA fans, obviously you're not going to like the other team. But maybe you'll learn something, or, Rams, Trojan fan, Rams, vice versa. That's the whole point of the show. So let's get into this Chargers game, shall we? I can't remember ever. I think I tweeted this during the game. For most of the game, it was like 14-14. It was right around a tie all game. Low scoring affair. But it was, offenses were moving the ball. They just couldn't score. And I remember tweeting, I don't remember a more exciting 14-14 game. Final was 20-17 Dallas. But usually when you have that score, it's typically, a pretty boring game. Offenses are going 3 and out, just can't really get anything going. It's a defensive kind of slugfest. This one had all of it, though. You had turnovers. The only thing I hated about was the penalties. You had tons of penalties. I think the Chargers finished with 10 or 11, which you just can't have. You're not going to win many football games like that. And I know some of them were BS, which we're going to get to. But overall, just can't have that many. I think Brandon Staley said it many times in his presser. Just didn't play clean football in all phases. Got beat in all phases because we didn't play clean football. So I thought his presser was pretty telling. I think he was proud of the guys where they played. I think this team, and what I want to say right out at the get-go, is because many people, especially if you didn't watch the whole game or you didn't watch a lot last year, if you're more of a score box checker, or maybe you watch like a little bit here and there, you'll see, oh, wow, here we go. Chargers lost another one-possession game. Same old song and dance. One-possession game. Couldn't win the close game. Last week was a fluke. But if you watched the game, you knew it was different. Like last year's close losses, it was like mistake riddled, right? Like poor game management or clock management. Just left stuff on the field. I would say in this one, they didn't leave anything on the field. Like, like I said, we'll get into some of those penalties that took 2 touchdowns off the board. 2 touchdowns came off the board from penalties. Justin Herbert had a red zone interception. So there were definitely mistakes, but it had a different vibe, a different feel. It wasn't like they left it out there and you're like, man, that's again, the Chargers blew that game, which is what pretty much every one-possession game was last year. It was like they blew it. This one, some unfortunate things happened. Some mistakes were made, but the Cowboys just went out there and beat them. I don't think that this should be a worry. This should be people panicking. This definitely shouldn't be people comparing this team to last year's squad because it's very different. Offense was humming, moving the ball. They're like third or so in explosive plays this season. So, I mean, they're running they're using their offensive play calling efficiently, which I said all along with this new scheme is what they're going to want to do, run an efficient offense, but they're still having those big plays, that big play ability when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, that obviously helps. So it was a tough loss. And you hate to see Brandon Staley's defense be the one to give up the loss at the end. A tie game. I think two minutes and change on the clock when the Cowboys get the ball back and they allow them to drive down into field goals range. Still to make the kick. It was like a 56-yarder. Greg the Leg, former Ram, nailed it, drilled it. So kudos to them. I thought they ruined it because Mike McCarthy was doing his Beth Anthony Lynn impression with just horrible clock management at the end of the game. They could have ran like one, maybe 2 more plays to get some more yards, and they just didn't. They just chose not to run on their play and have a 56-yard kick when they had 30 seconds to play with to get, a few more yards, and they didn't. So I was like, oh, wow, they may have just ruined it. But he ended up drilling it anyway, so it didn't matter. But, a lot's been said already about this game, about this team, about, what went down. I want to talk a little bit about some good real quick, and then we'll end with, the penalties and kind of what caused this loss to kind of come to fruition. Justin Herbert, another good game. Let's start with him. 31 of 41, 338 yards, a touchdown. Did have the 2 picks. I want to talk about the picks quickly. The first pick, and Brandon Staley, I noticed it too, but Brandon Staley is the one that said it, and I appreciate this. The Dallas corner, it was an attempted, cross pattern to Keenan Allen. Dallas corner cut it, made a great play on the football. Kudos to him. I think everyone was like, wow, that's just a great play. It's not a bad pass, not this. But Brandon Staley said, Keenan's got to cut that route in more. He kind of rounded it out. So he was almost not blaming by any means, but basically saying, hey, he ran it too deep, if you will. And he needed to shallow it up because then that corner can't undercut it. So those are the little things. And I always appreciate Staley for giving us those nuances of oh, wow, I would have just thought, wow, great play by him, which it was. But had Keenan, ran it a little shallower, he would have cut off the corner. That couldn't have happened because it was just a bang, bang play. I mean, Justin Herbert, laser in there, and he made a good play. So that was on the first possession when the offense was moving the ball quickly through the pick. And then I think the next play or 2 plays later, Asante Samuel Jr. got it right back with his first NFL interception. So no harm done really on that. So that one I'm not too worried about. It was just a good play. Keenan Allen could have ran it a little more shallow, but I don't think it was that huge of a egregious miss by him. It's just a good play by the defender. The second pick, And I saw a lot of kind of mixed stuff on this, which I get. In the red zone, so that's, that alone, that's minimum 3 points. Minimum 3 points. So where the Dallas on the last drive would have been just tying it as opposed to winning it. Opportunity to score a touchdown to take the lead. And, it's all hearsay. Who knows how the game goes after that. But obviously you look at it from just a score point and you're like, okay, they would have won the game with that touchdown. And I'm not being over. Justin Herbert had a phenomenal day. The kid's going to be he probably already is a top 5 quarterback. Like when you watch him play, you're just like, dude, this guy is, we saw it all last year, but everyone's hesitant in year 2. Is there going to be regression? Was it a fluke? New coaching staff changes, new scheme. The dude has it. He's so good. So fun to watch. Amazing arm. Extends plays. Cerebral. Extremely smart. Pinpoint accuracy. Gunslinger. But this is one that I'm going to say was his fault completely. Triple coverage. Keenan Allen falls down on the route or slips on the route. So it's an easy interception. Just goes right in the hands of the Dallas defender in the end zone for a touchback. And I saw a few people say, and I get it, but I saw a few people say, if we're going to praise Herbert when he makes these tight window throws, we can't be critical of him when, they don't work, or B, when the receiver falls down. Like, it's not his fault. We can't praise him and then also be like, oh, you shouldn't have made that throw, because we're just being hypocritical, essentially, is what they're getting at. Which I totally get. My difference with it is tight window throws, when you get down to the red zone, can become no window throws. So he's made a career so far in these 17 games of making these tight ass window throws, right? Like you see these, he has like millimeters where he puts these ball in. And it's amazing. You watch it like, man, how many QBs can make that throw? Not many. Probably count them on a couple fingers, not even enough on one hand. But when you get down to the red zone, those tight windows become even tighter. And in this instance, it wasn't a tight window. There was no window. Even if Keenan Allen hadn't have fallen down, he was surrounded by 3 guys. Maybe it gets through. We'll never know. I'm sure people can argue, like looking at the tape, like, oh no, you could see if he's right here, the ball would have got there in time. Maybe. Sure, if you want to argue that. There's tight window, there's no window. I'm saying there's no window. So to me, that's a mistake on Herbert. It's tough. It just was. Tried to force it. Not the right time to force it. When you're trying to push the ball down the field, I love it. Love the aggression. When there's points on the board, you're in the red zone. Let's not force in the triple coverage. Praise the guy all game, I will. But I'm going to say it like I see it. That's what I saw. It was a mistake. Not the end of the world. Not concerned. They stayed in the game. The defense got his back. They still had an opportunity to win. But yeah, that was a crucial turnover. It took points off the board. Austin Eckler, big bounce back game. Not that he had a bad game. Let me say this. Not even a bounce back game. He had a good game against Washington. Just wasn't involved in the passing game, which is very interesting because we all thought like, okay, he's going to be, used like an Alvin Kamara, and he didn't get a single reception against Washington. Well, that changed pretty quickly when he had 9 receptions for 61 yards in this one. So he was used a lot, touched the ball 18 times, which is what I want. We want Eckler utilized a lot in this offense, whether it's in the run game or the passing game. Would have liked to see in general the Chargers run the football more. Between their backs, they had 14 carries total. Really want to see that. With any NFL team, I really like to see that number in the 20-plus range, especially in a tight game like this. It wasn't like they were like down the whole game. Like they were down at times, but down by 1 score. And with the injuries the Cowboys have sustained to their defensive front, with the fact that they were getting a lot of pressure from Micah Parsons on the edge, who is playing D-end in this one, changing his position a little bit, but going up against Storm Norton. And Storm Norton had no answer. It's hard to blame him. Run the football then. Take some pressure off. You're going in pass pro 41 times, and you're getting beat continually by this guy. Like, you need to either add some help to him on that side, give them a chip, make sure the running backs lined up over there to help double team, do something, run the football, run some counters, run some stretch plays, run some zones, run some sweeps to the other side. So that was the one thing about the offensive play call I didn't love. I would like to see the running the ball. And I know they weren't super successful running the ball, but Austin Eckler had 6 yards a carry. He had 9 carries, averaged 6 yards a clip. Justin Jackson averaged 5 yards a clip, 5.2 on his 4 carries. So it wasn't like they were running the ball 12 times and had like 9 yards rushing and it just wasn't working. They had some efficiency there. So I would have liked to see them pursue that more. Not that I don't trust Justin Herbert by any means. Dude's a baller. But that's going to take some pressure off of your right tackle who's struggling, your quarterback who threw 2 picks, trying to force the ball a little bit. Just run the football a little more. So I think they'll get that right. That's my one kind of critique on that. Defensively, I know people were concerned right off the bat. Dallas drove right down the field and scored. You know, I've said many times on the show that if you watch any Brandon Staley defense over the past few years, now I'm not saying they're bad in the beginning, but you know, they sometimes take some time because he's such a looking at the adjustments to make, and then they'll clamp down once, you know, a few drives into the game, second half, whatever it may be. And they did that. Dallas moved the ball down with ease in that first drive. And after that, put up what? 13 points after that? Is that, yeah, my math? Yeah. Put up 13 points after that first drive. So the defense played relatively very well. Great to see Derwin James back, healthy. You know, had seven tackles on the day, half a sack. Credit to him and Jerry Tillery. Kyler Fackrell, big sack in the red zone that ended up, I think, leading to a field goal as opposed to a touchdown. So good play by him. Joey Bosa, 3 tackles, no sacks. You know, you'd love to see him more involved, but they were game planning to keep him out of the game. You know, good offenses game plan to keep superstars from wrecking games. And, you know, most of the time, superstars, which Joey Bosa is, he is a superstar. Most of the time, a game plan still won't be enough to stop him. This one was. I'm not concerned about it. I don't think Joey had a bad game. Like, he forced their hand to scheme around him, to run the ball opposite him or whatnot, or I mean, if you watch their passing game, it was quick, right? And it was efficient. They did it well. But it wasn't like he had a bad game and there's like, oh man, he's lost a step, or why are we, you know, he got beat so bad. No, they schemed around him. They had a good game plan to counteract what he's good at. And they lost this game. Go back to the drawing board, get in the practice room, and I bet you he balls out next week. Bet you he absolutely balls out next week. So, tough loss for the Chargers. You know, you hate these one possession losses again. You know, same song and dance like everyone says, but it wasn't. I just think this team played very, very different. And you know, I was it's hard to say you're overly pleased in a loss. There's no wins and losses, as they say. There's no moral victories, as they say. But I think there is. I think we can see what this team is building. We can see the process. So they just need to clean up penalties. Oh, I didn't even get to that. You know, we're running out of time here for the Chargers segment. I didn't even get to that. But the illegal shift call. I've seen some people say, yeah, it was the right call, technically, although it's never called. And then the play after that, they call a sack. I mean, I think it would have been, I think, intentional grounding. Regardless, he didn't get it back to the line of scrimmage. So it essentially would have been the same thing. I don't think they would have lost quite as many yards, maybe, because they would have downed it closer to the line of scrimmage or whatever. It wouldn't have been the 20-yard loss that it was, I don't think. Yeah, I don't get how they called that a sack. So that was bizarre. The illegal shift that took the touchdown off. It was just brutal, man. You know, I never blame refs for games because I think there's so many things that happen throughout 60 minutes. It's hard to blame a call or 2 calls. There's been a few throughout history that you can fully blame the refs for a loss. But usually there's still plays that come after it. Like every now and then there's a call on the last play of the game that's like, okay, that's the call that caused the game. But a lot of them, like, it's a terrible call that shifts the game, but there's still, you know, plays afterwards that have to be played out. So I never liked that, but this was a tough one for the Chargers. This was a poorly called game for the Chargers. I'll just say that much. Poorly called. But it is what it is. It is what it is. You know, you had an opportunity after that to still get in the end zone. You end up taking a sack, albeit what it is, or it would have been intentional grounding regardless. So that pushes you back, and then you end up settling for a field goal. And then you had the opportunity to stop Dallas to at least force an overtime. So, you know, it's unfortunate. It's a tough loss, but you move on. You pick yourself up. You got the Chiefs next week. You know, here we are. Whenever you listen to the show, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever it is, you go up against Kansas City now, in Kansas City, and they're coming off a tough loss to Baltimore by 1 point. You know they're going to be hungry for another win. And you don't want to fall down 1-2 in this division if you're the Chargers. You do not want to fall down. And I mean, I won't blame if they do. This is the defending AFC champions for the last 3 years, 2 years. AFC West champions for the last like 7. But I want to see how they play against this team. I want to see how this defense does against this Pat Mahomes offense. It'll be fun to watch. So anyway, tough loss for the Cowboys. I'm not worried though. They'll rebound. They'll get back to it and pick themselves up. And it's going to be an exciting matchup against the Chiefs, which we will preview next episode later in the week. So look forward to that. All right, quickly before we get into our Rams recap, big win in Indianapolis. Had Lucas Oil said, big win. Got to talk about my friends at Balance 7. So I think if you listen to the show, I've said this story before, so I don't need to get into it. But Lamar Odom started using this product, and now he wants to make a run to get back into professional basketball. Not in the NBA, but, you know, overseas. So good for him. Yeah, it's great. But I think it says something about Balance 7, which is a pH balancing alkaline supplement drink. So it's like vitamins or supplements, but it's in liquid form. So just 1 ounce a day, 3 times a day, and in a week, you're going to see the effects. So, you know, all of us, we get older. You know, we're in pain all the time, whether you're playing sports, whether you're just being a dad, chasing your kids around, you know, whatever you do for work, you're sore. This is a natural way to, you know, rehydrate your body. So you can see how Balance 7 has helped Lamar Odom. It's helped me. It's helped many other athletes and just, you know, people out there that are active. And right now you can go to balance7.com. It's the number 7. So balance7.com. Use the promo code BELIEVE and you're going to get $10 off their 32-ounce bottle. So that bottle lasts 11 days, which is the perfect amount of time to feel the pH balancing drink go to work. So again, that's balance7.com. Use the promo code BELIEVE at checkout. $10 off their 32-ounce bottle. All right, so this Rams game. What a win, man. What a win. Rams starting 2-0. 2-0. Love to see it. It's funny because I love covering multiple teams because every fan base, and this is not a knock, this is just being a fan and just being a sports fan, because I do the same thing, I'm sure. Every fan base is the same way, no matter how good or bad your team is. Like your team can be great and they give up 2 touchdowns and all of a sudden you have the worst defense in the entire league. And they need to rebuild it, fire the coach, start over. You know, after the beginning of this game, or at least I remember on the first drive, which ended up turning into a turnover, I believe, for the Colts. Drove down the field, get in the red zone, and on Twitter, fire Raheem Morris. We miss Brandon Staley. Worst defense. What a regression. It's 1 drive in. I implore you fans to watch the whole game before you start. I know it's, you know, it's Twitter. Everyone's just, you know, tweeting their thoughts without thinking about it. I get it. But this defense has actually performed, in a sense, better than Brandon Staley's defense last year, 2 games in. Also started 2-0. So, you know, more sacks, I believe, more turnovers, less points scored. So overall in those statistics, this defense actually looked better, performed better, which is crazy, which is good. So this was a good game. It was a good test because I know what we saw Indy do against Seattle was not the true Indianapolis team. This is a playoff team. I would say will be the outright favorites from the division, but Tennessee actually came back and won this week against Seattle. So it was great. Good to see Seattle lose. Yeah, so they moved to 1-1 finally. So we got 3 2-0 teams in the NFC West. Seahawks at the bottom at 1-1. But yeah, if Tennessee had lost that game, then I'm like, okay, this Indy team is like the downright favorites. Only 2 games in, but the favorites win the division. But now, they're both, they're not even tied. Indy's actually 0-2. But I don't think, Jacksonville's definitely not making a move anytime soon. And the Texans have been a good story with how well they've played 2 games in, but, they just don't have the talent, I don't think, to really hold on down the stretch. This is going to be between Tennessee and Indy, and I don't think both make it again. I think the AFC West might see 3 teams go. And, other divisions, who knows about the AFC North, but they're going to rebound with. And that being said, this Indy team was not what we saw last week in Seattle. I knew they were a better team. They're getting healthier on the offensive line, getting healthier in the running back room. Carson Wentz is still getting comfortable back there and can be a good quarterback, which we saw. So I don't want anyone to sit here and be like, man, this was a bad team that took us to the brink. No, this was a playoff team last year, and it's going to be a playoff team this year, or close to it. This Rams team is still getting used to each other, not playing any preseason games. Game 2 of them all lining up together with the same uniform on, with a new quarterback at the helm. So I'm not concerned at all. It's a big win. Anytime you won on the road, it's good. It was sloppy. There were some mistakes made. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't dominant, but they won the game. And that's what you take to the bank, and you say, okay, now how do we clean it up before Tampa Bay? How do we clean up some of these mistakes before we play the defending Super Bowl championship? And they'll do that. I think they'll do that. Matthew Stafford finished the game 19 for 30 for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, did have the interception, which is a bad pick, just a forced throw. Stafford's a gunslinger, man. So he's going to do that sometimes, unfortunately. You don't want to see it all the time. I know Detroit fans were like, see, we told you. Just matter of time before you see that in Stafford. That's a quarterback that takes chances. If he has 3 of those a game, that becomes a concern. 1, and then he cleaned it up right after that. I think the very next drive, drove him down, got a touchdown. So, not a great pick. Forced throw. No concern to me. No concern. There was never a point, I think I talked last week after the Bears game. I think I was actually on Nick and Dean show on the Rams brothers. And I think Nick asked me, were you ever concerned in this Bears game? Oh, wow, this might actually be an upset. I never was. I felt the same way in this one. I was really never concerned that the Colts were truly ever had a shot to win this game. I just think this Rams team is too good. They were going to clean things up when it mattered. They were great in the red zone on defense, forcing turnovers, holding to field goals. And yeah, so biggest concern for this team right now is Darrell Henderson. Like a lot of us thought, banged up again, rib cartilage or, a rib injury. Hasn't been ruled out yet, but I would say pretty unlikely that he goes against the Buccaneers. Sony Michel, when he came in, he actually got 10 carries, averaged 4.6 yards a clip, looked very good. But you're going to want more backs than 2 against Tampa Bay, just for depth. So it'll see if they pull someone up off the practice squad. They did just sign Hawkins, who had a very good collegiate career. See if they end up putting him on the game day roster next week. Sony Michel obviously will be the starter if Darrell Henderson can't go. But, it's one of those, I don't want to sit here and be like, I told you so, and I know more than the coaching staff, because I don't. I'll never pretend to know more than Sean McVay, who's one of the smartest guys out there and a great football mind. But I've been pretty vocal that I love Darrell Henderson in a complimentary role. I don't see him as an every down 20-plus carry back. That wasn't what he was in college. That, in my opinion, wasn't what the Rams drafted him to be when they took him. At the time they still had Todd Gurley. They took him as a complimentary slasher, big play ability back. I didn't see him as a every starting or first and second down, 15 to 25 carries a game. I just didn't think he was built for that. I didn't think he could sustain that. And unfortunately, he's been banged up. I don't know if injury prone is the right moniker yet, because but he's missed games every year of his career. So however you want to say it, and we might miss another one. And it's unfortunate because he was playing well. So it's not like he's not good enough to be that. It's just the way he plays, the style he is, the way he's built. It doesn't seem like he can sustain that, especially for week 2. Week 2. And he's already banged up, missing time. We already lost our starter in Cam Akers, so that's my one concern for this team is they need to figure out the running back stable. And I believe in this scheme, there's even talent out there they could pick up off the streets that I think can tote the rock and get yards for this team. But Sony Michel's a guy who's also had injuries in his past. But unbelievable defensive front. Dominican Sue, Vita Vea, Shaq Barrett off the edge. Probably the best linebacking core. Devin White and Levante David. I mean, it'd be hard to pick who's better than that. They have a good pair in Chicago. Some other good pairings, but Tampa Bay might be the best linebacking core. So it's gonna be really hard to run against that team. But you need to at least commit some carries to open things up for play action and Matthew Stafford. You don't want to go out there and run the ball 9 times. I feel much more confident if Stafford has to throw the ball 40 plus times, 45 plus times, than I would if Goff was still the quarterback. Much more confident, but it's not a recipe for success. You need to be able to run the ball effectively, or at least just commit to it. You could have 15 carries for 30 yards, but those 15 carries, that 14th might be enough where the play action on the next play releases Cooper Kupp, releases Deshaun Jackson, someone cheating in because you've actually ran the ball a few times. You run it 8, 9 times. I don't like it. So that's the one thing I want to see committed, which they were. They were committed this week. They ran the ball almost like 25 times, 23 between Henderson and Michel, and you get your few wide receiver sweeps that they always run. Which one was a horrible play call. 3rd and short, and you get Kupp on the sweep, and he ends up losing like 4 yards. Did not work out well. Speaking of Kupp, can we start talking about this guy as a top 10 receiver? Can we? I don't know what it is, why he's not. When you look at the top receivers in the game, physically he's maybe not up there with the Mike Evans, the Julio Jones, the DK Metcalfs. But all this guy does is produce. I mean, he's done it his whole career, and now all of a sudden, since Stafford comes to town, the guy's unstoppable. 9 receptions, 163 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Had a monster game in week 1 also. Sure-handed, can block, can run out of the backfield if you need to. Gets open in space. Extremely smart, can run after the catch. When is this guy going to start getting talked about as a top 10 receiver? The fact that him and Robert Woods have never been to a Pro Bowl is egregious. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Robert Woods had 2 drops, very uncharacteristic. It happens. I'm not worried about it. Solid game for him, too. 5 receptions, 64 yards. He's just Mr. Reliable. I know I just mentioned the 2 drops and say Mr. Reliable, but overall he is. Van only 1 catch. Higbee only 1 catch. No Deshaun Jackson yet again. No Tutu. So it's interesting to see the distribution of these receivers. We thought with how deep they are that the ball would be spread around a lot. So far, it's kind of been the Cooper Kupp show with some other guys sprinkled in. But I just said, if it's working, if the dude's always open, feed him the rock. So I do want to see Jackson involved at some point. I think McVay said after the game, it's his job to call plays to get him involved. So he took onus on that. Really didn't even have any snaps out there. But they didn't need him. So it's not a horrible thing to have. If you don't need him, don't force it. But I want to see Kupp start getting into those conversations of a top 10 guy. I don't know why. This is his size, maybe his 40 time. You stand him next to DK Metcalf and doesn't look the part. Stand him next to Julio Jones, doesn't look the part. Antonio Brown never looked the part. He was smaller in stature. That's why he got drafted in the 6th round. Dude produces. Runs great routes. Doesn't drop the football. Comes up clutch when you need him. That's Cooper Kupp. Let's start giving this guy the respect he deserves. I know we all do out as, Rams fans, and people that cover the Rams always do. But nationally, this guy needs to get in those top 10 conversations. Like, give me 10 receivers you would rather have on your team than Cooper Kupp right now. On your team. Not a guy that, fantasy-wise, this guy might have the ability to produce more. If I'm taking 1 through 10 and I said I need this guy on my team, give me 10 guys you'll take above Cooper Kupp. There's some great receivers out there. But I don't know if I can think of 10. Maybe I'll try to. Next episode, we'll talk it out. So, But good win for the Rams, 27-24. They finish. They come from behind, actually. They dropped down late in the game, came back when they had to have it, when Stafford, everyone, all these Detroit fans, like, when the game's on the line, you wait, Stafford's going to throw a game-clinching interception. Didn't happen this time. When the game was on the line, he drove the team down and got the points they needed. Rams win 27-24. Didn't cover. I was a little bummed. Didn't cover. Another bet I had on Bet Online. There were 3.5-point favorites. Took the points. They won by 3. So a little bummed, but hey, they got the win. It's all good. So next week, Tampa Bay should be a great one. We will have a great guest on for that on our preview show at the end of the week. So that'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, your Rams are 2-0, and to me are still one of the Super Bowl favorites. This matchup against Tampa Bay is going to be so much fun. So much fun. So, but we'll get all into that. 2-0. Let me know how you guys think. At Ryan Dart LFB on Twitter. Would love to know your thoughts on this game. I know we talked a lot throughout this actual game. So, most of us talked a lot, but if we haven't talked yet, hit me up. Ryan Dart LAFB would love to hear your thoughts on that Rams win. So, all right, before we get into our segment on the Bruins and the heartbreaking loss, have you heard of playactionpools.com yet? Our pod is partnering with them. Once again, that's playactionpools.com this season to bring some interactive fun to the sport we love most. You'll be able to get in the action with our playactionpools.com football pick'em challenge. It's open to everyone. How it works, you sign up to our contest, Believe Football Pick'em, that's BLEAV, Football Pick'em, I'll say it again, playactionpools.com. Get your picks in it each week. We pick 10 of the highest profile games of the week, 8 NFL, 2 college. You're not picking 50 games. Pick those 10 games. Person who picks the most correct will win a pair of electric sunglasses and a pair of DC shoes each week. So again, playactionpools.com, sign up for the contest, Believe Football Pick'em. Make your picks today. Win some free stuff. Can't go wrong with that. Right? All right. Bruins game. I was at this game in the press box. Just want to shout that out. We're making moves here at the LA Football Network. We're making moves. Back and forth game. Tough loss, man. Tough loss. I'm not going to recap play by play. This happened on Saturday night at 3 a.m. on the East Coast, wherever you guys are. But if you're here in LA, it ended at 12:30. UCLA, I'll just say this. It was a back and forth game, sloppy in the beginning a little bit. The defense, started off very slow, could not slow down Fresno State whatsoever. Made adjustments in the second half, played very well in the third quarter. Defense played very well in the third quarter. Offense then struggled. It was they were never in sync together. It was when the defense was struggling, the offense was at least keeping it close. Then as soon as the defense came together, then the offense couldn't move the ball. So it's when they could have all played together at once and they could have, built a lead or something. Just couldn't make it happen. But overall, they played a little sloppy, had some mistakes. I don't think they overlooked Fresno. I know people will be like, wow, they just overlooked them coming off that big loss to LSU. No, they had a bye that week. There was no excuses. I don't think they overlooked them. I think Fresno State is a good ball club. I think they're a good team. But anyway, so the third quarter, the defense kind of clamped down, and the fourth quarter comes back and forth, man. It was exciting football. The offenses were just plugging along. UCLA goes down, they're down 3. Yeah, they're down 3. Get the ball back with 2 minutes and 55 seconds. And we're like, okay, this is DTR's moment. I remember sitting in the press box thinking that. This is DTR's moment. His 4th year. You're ranked 13th in the nation for the first time in your career. Ranked at all. First time in your career. After coming off a big win against LSU. You're down 3 against a good Fresno State team, but a team you should beat. And you need to beat to stay in that upper echelon category. You have the ball. You have 2 minutes, 55 seconds. You have some timeouts. Let's see what you do with it. This is your time to show that you've matured in your 4th year as a starter. And they do. They move the football down the field. He makes some plays with his legs, makes some plays through the air, end up scoring a touchdown. To take a 4-point lead after the extra point. 4-point lead. I believe there was 50 seconds or so left on the clock. So, you think, man, they could have probably milked more time off the clock. But it's still, they have to score a touchdown. It's not like a field goal ties or wins. They're up 4. So, you can play some prevent if you want. Just don't give up the big play. Don't give up the touchdown. This game's over. UCLA wins 37-33. And, right off into, they'll move up the rankings a little bit maybe, and they can escape this one and go 3-0 once they get in the Pac-12 play. Well, unfortunately, Jake Haener, Fresno State quarterback, who had a phenomenal game all game, was playing basically on one leg after getting, just destroyed in the backfield, a possession prior after scoring a touchdown, albeit, his hip was banged up, playing on one leg. And, he decided this was a time to enter the annals of Fresno State football history and play one for the ages. So like I said, like 50 seconds or so remaining. Somehow drives Fresno State down the field quickly. Gets the ball down there, with 14 seconds or so left. They're on like the 18 or so yard line. Throws a great corner route about 2 yards shy of the goal line. Guy backpedals past the pylon. Touchdown. Heartbreak. Deflated. Wind out of the sails. Everything you can say about just high emotion crashing down happened at the Rose Bowl once he passed that pylon. Like I said, there was like 14 seconds or left, so Fresno State's able to kick it off. UCLA got one more. I think they had two plays, one over the middle, and they threw like a Hail Mary, which was knocked down. Ball game. Fresno State wins 40-37. Gut-wrenching loss. You hate to see it too when you're up a touchdown or up 4 points with less than a minute left. Just got to make it stop. But they didn't. So after this game, there was a lot of, here we go. Beating LSU was a fluke. Chip Kelly's still soft. DTR still ain't it. Blah, 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 blah. I went a different route. I wrote a piece right after the game. You can read up on LAFBnetwork.com if you'd like to about, what's next. So they lost. It is. We can sit here and, bah humbug and be mad at Chip Kelly and this for, letting the fans down again. Or we can look at what's next. This team lost to a good Fresno State team. I want everyone to just sit down, relax, breathe, and think about it. Chip Kelly's 0-4 against Fresno State now. Or not, I think Chip's 0-2. The last time that UCLA has played Fresno State, they're 0-4. Not a good stat. They're a Mountain West team. Those past years were probably worse because this was just a bad UCLA team. This is a great program Fresno State's building. They're one of the top Mountain West teams in that conference, which, puts some good product on the field. San Diego State's been good for a long, long time now. San Jose State was very good last year. Probably good again this year with great offense. Colorado State's had their moments. Boise State, we all know about Boise State and what they've done. There's some good football in the Mountain West. Now, Pac-12 should always be better. I don't disagree. UCLA should always be better. It's UCLA. It's Los Angeles. It's the Pac-12. Conference of Champions. But I don't want you just to look at history and look at conference ties and say, okay, well, this is just a bad UCLA team. They can't even beat Fresno State. Bad UCLA team. I disagree. It's a Fresno State team that scored 108 points in their 2 wins prior to this. Granted, they played lesser opponents, but they scored 108 freaking points. They lost to Oregon, who is the third-ranked team after beating Ohio State 2 weeks ago. Lost them by a touchdown. Took them to the brink. After that game, everyone was saying, man, Oregon's maybe not that good. They almost lost to Fresno State. And then the very next week, Oregon goes in to the shoe at Ohio State and takes them down, dominates the whole game. And then it's like, well, maybe this Fresno State team's actually pretty good. And they proved that on Saturday night. So it's a tough loss, heart-wrenching loss, but it's not the end of the world. UCLA's 2-1 going into Pac-12 play. So they're 0-0 in the Pac-12. So they can still win the Pac-12 division. They can still go to the Rose Bowl. I mean, they can still make it to the college football playoff. If they went out and their one loss against Fresno State, who, let me tell you, I wrote this in my piece, would not be surprised if Fresno State climbed in the top 25, if not this week, if they win again the next week. Well, they already did. They're ranked 22 now. UCLA drops to 24, so a huge slide there. but still ranked in the top 25. Their one loss is to now a top 25 team. So everyone just, breathe. The sky is not falling. Sucks to lose after that high of beating LSU. But now playing Stanford, get off on the right foot, go 1-0 in the Pac-12, and let's get things back on track. And this UCLA team can still do something very special this season. DTR overall played a good game. I believe he had another egregious fumble. No picks, though, but he had a classic DTR fumble, backpedaling, goes to throw, and just slips out of his hand. But fairly efficient, 14 of 24 for 278 through 3 touchdowns. I didn't love that the running game really never got going. But as Chip Kelly said in his presser, Fresno State played to stop the run. They were stacking the box. He's like, they knew what we were good at, and they set out to stop what we were good at. So we had to attack them in different ways. And I'm very happy to say that Kyle Phillips, the receiver we all knew he could be, showed out. 7 receptions, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. Balled out. So love seeing that from Kyle Phillips because we know that's what he can be. So I'm going to leave it at that with this game. Tough loss, but it's, the sky's not falling. It's a good Fresno State team, now ranked 22 in the country. UCLA gets a good test against Stanford in their first game of the Pac-12, and we'll see how they rebound. That's how we're going to see what this team's made of. If they can come out and ball out against Stanford and win, I'm not even saying they need to win big, but play a good, clean game in all phases of the game, and beat Stanford, get back on track. Then it's like, okay, lost a tough game, but hey, this is still a good football team that can have a special season, because I believe they can. I believe they can have a special season. I still think the winner of the Pac-12 South is going to come down to that USC-UCLA game. I think that even more after seeing how bad Utah's been, after Arizona State already has a loss to a BYU team. I mean, that was their only real competition. Colorado is a year or two away. I know they took A&M to the brink, but, they're playing a true freshman quarterback. They got just blanked by the team they played last week. Arizona obviously is a dumpster fire, so we're not worried about them. So it's going to come down to USC and UCLA, both with one loss, although UCLA is undefeated in Pac-12 play thus far. So they can go 1-0 against Stanford. It's going to come down to that second to last week of the season when those two teams play each other. Can't wait for it. So speaking of SC, let's get into that now. Quickly, though, before I do that, Brewery X. You guys on the Brewery X train yet? Gotta love Brewery X. If you're a beer drinker, you got to check Brewery X. They're in Anaheim on the La Palma Beer Trail. Off the 57, they're right near Angel Stadium and Honda Center. They're the new, I think they officially announced, I don't know if they officially did, but I'm going to do it right now. I don't know if you say the new partner of the Anaheim Ducks, but where there used to be, if you've been to a Ducks game at Honda Center, they have like the shock top, I don't know what they call it, but it's like an area that's like the shock top area at Honda Center. They only sell shock top. Well, that's now the Brewery X area. Brewery X is partnered with the Honda Center, our partners. So they're getting big time. So you got to check that out. We're doing some fun stuff this season. We're going to be doing some parties at Brewery X. We're going to be doing some party buses to games where we'll meet at Brewery X and then party bus to our LA football games. So you got to check them out. You can find their beer in Total Wine, Bevmo, or Trader Joe's. So pick them up. Tell them the guys at LAFB sent you. All right. USC. Donte Williams. Jaxson Dart. This game started off. Oh, man. Trojan fans were having a meltdown. I was talking to Frost. He turned it off. I don't know if he wants me to promote that, but he turned the game off. Down 14-0 to Washington State. And it looked exactly like the Stanford game. Sloppy, no emotion, no urgency. Couldn't move the ball on offense. Couldn't run the ball. Defense could not stop Washington State for anything. Washington State was just moving the ball at will. Keaton Slovic gets hurt on, I can't remember if it was the first, I think it was the first possession. First offensive possession. Gets hurt, and you're like, okay, here we go. I believe in Donte. I think he can turn this thing around. This is me thinking out loud. I'm like, 4 days is maybe too soon to think that. I had a lot of hype that they were going to come out fiery and blow this Washington State team out, and Donte Williams was going to prove that he was the man for the job, or at least in that short time, he was the guy to get his team going. Maybe 4 days just wasn't enough time. Need more time to instill his style, his system. Down 14-0. Here we go again. We'll only get a spark. Jaxson Dart comes in, true freshman who we were all excited about. We've talked about a lot on the show. Frostee's talked about him a bunch. I think he was the quarterback or the player of the year in the nation. Threw for like almost 70 touchdowns last year in high school in Utah. The kid's a baller. Big, big body, big arm. Like your prototypical Trojan quarterback. Love Keaton Slovis. I've always shown my love for him on the show, and I love him. And they have a big. We'll get into that in a minute. They have a big QB question here going into the next week, but he wasn't your prototypical size-wise. A little smaller stature. Didn't have the huge arm. By small arm, he's still like 6 foot, but didn't have the cannon arm like these. Like the Sam Darnolds, like the Matt Leinarts. That wasn't his build. He wasn't really recruited to be the starter here. He recruited a 3-star guy out of Arizona that was essentially going to back up JT Daniels. And then when JT Daniels eventually went to the draft, maybe he'd get that job as a senior or other recruits would come in. But he was kind of just coming in to be a backup. And then we all know what happened in that story about how he came in after JT Daniels got hurt and just never lost the job again. Even though he missed one game, Matt Fink came in, had a great game against Utah, but overall, Keaton Slovis was phenomenal his freshman year. Take nothing away from that. But then Jaxson Dart comes in this week. Took him a few drives to get going. Threw a pick on his, I believe, second drive. Just a forced throw, Freshman. What's funny to me is here you have a true freshman coming in, never played it down in college, and you come out throwing. Like, no, let's not ease him into it, hand the ball off, try to establish the run a little bit. Come out slinging it, which is what this offense is anyway. They can't run the ball. That's a whole nother story. Still didn't run the ball well in this game, even with the big win. I think they finished with like barely over 20 yards total. Their leading rusher was Jaxson Dart. Malapay went 9 for 9, and Keontae Ingram went 7 for 16. So they, could not run the ball still. But anyway, forced him into the fire, throwing the football, throws a pick, settles down after that. Before the half, has a great, great play where he throws a deep touchdown to true freshman Gary Bryant Jr., gets them back, within striking distance. Then it's 14-7 going into the half. And you're like, okay, maybe it's not over. It's not good. Like, we should not be down 14-7 to this Washington State team. But, at least there's some excitement. We got a touchdown there at the end. Jaxson Dart made a nice play. Okay, let's see what Donte Williams does at halftime. And maybe, this can be a respectable loss, or at least maybe a nail-bite win that we can say, okay, we got a win at least under his belt. Well, they come out in the second half. There was a stat about, 7 of 8 games in a row, they didn't have a touchdown in the third quarter, I want to say. They scored 28 in this third quarter. 28. And they scored 10 in the fourth quarter. Put up a 45 spot. Gave up no points on defense in the second half. Ended up winning 45-14. Jaxson Dart breaks pretty much, many records. Most yards thrown by a true freshman in his debut, 391 yards. Finished with 4 touchdowns. Did have 2 picks. But again, that first one and then the second one was more of a fluke. Drake London, who's going to be a first-round draft pick, I think, at receiver. 13 for 172 tubs. Gary Bryant Jr., finally, we see him. We haven't seen him at all. Freshman to freshman connection. 3 for 56 and a touchdown. Get Manjack with a big reception. Get Kyle Ford with a touchdown. Finally, we've been waiting to see Kyle Ford, who is this huge recruit. Haven't seen him involved. Gets him for a 36-yard touchdown. Taj Washington involved. All these guys spreading the ball around. The defense balls out in the second half. Like I said, no points. They finally get after the quarterback. We see Drake Jackson force a turnover, get a sack. First a turnover, a sack fumble in the end zone, which ended up being a touchdown. So, it's Washington State. But you now have a freshman quarterback. It has all the tools you want in an SC quarterback. You have an interim head coach that when things looked really bleak and really bad, down 14-0 in a rainy Pullman, Washington, found a poetic justice, if you will. And before the half, got some momentum going. You could see him on the sidelines, getting his guys going, saying, this game's far from over. Let's play Trojan football. And then they come out of the half, guns blazing, and win one for their coach. First win as a head coach, and it was a great win. It almost made it better that they played so bad the first quarter and a half and then flip the script. Because it's like they were shaking off all of that Clay Helton vibes. They were still kind of in that Clay Helton era. And it took a quarter and a half of actually playing football, not just practicing or talking in press conferences. It took a quarter and a half actually playing to get all that Clay Helton vibe out of there and let Donte Williams rub his vibe on this team and what they're going to be for the rest of the season. So I know it's Washington State. It should have been a blowout from the beginning because USC just has so much more talent. But it became one. It became 45-14. 28 points in the third quarter. Gave up no points to Washington State in the second half. Shut them down. And there are people that are like, well, yeah, Washington State's starting quarterback went out. So did USC's on the first possession. Had to put in a true freshman. And the dude scored 45 points, threw for 4 touchdowns and almost 400 yards. So I get it. Washington State's playing shorthanded, so if you want to use that as a detractor, so is USC. And obviously they have better recruits. Jaxson Dart being a 4-star, probably could have been a 5-star. Still a true freshman. Still got to go out there and play. And they did. So I'm pumped about this team. Come home to the Coliseum to face Oregon State. I will be at that game this weekend. I hope it's a packed house, man. Any Trojans fans out there, listen, let's pack this house. Let's show our support for this Trojan team, show our support for Donte Williams, who, like I've said from the beginning, or not from the beginning, but once Clay Helton was fired, I think he has a true shot to win this head coaching job. Mike Bohn's not going to he's going to turn every leaf. He's going to go after every candidate. He's going to find the best. I have full faith in Mike Bohn as athletic director to hire the right head coach for this SC job going forward. But Donte Williams is in that pool. Nationally, no one's talking about him. But we've been here at the LAFB Network. We've been talking about him because he's a hell of a coach. He's the best recruiter in the nation. And you don't want to take that risk if you hire someone else losing this guy. Because he's going to, regardless of what happens, he's going to do enough this year to garner a head coaching job somewhere else. Maybe not the caliber of SC if they lose a couple games still. But if he wins out, they beat UCLA, they go to the Rose Bowl, they win the Rose Bowl. I think you can mark that contract with ink with Donte Williams' names as the new head coach. But we're going to have ourselves. This is 1 week. Great win. Huge team win for this program. Let's pack that house on Saturday against Oregon State. All right, that's going to do it for me. That's going to do it for the LA Football Show. Recap all those games. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for tuning in. Follow us everywhere you are on social media. At LAFB Network is the main account. You can find myself at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. Make sure to tune in on Fridays. We're live on YouTube at 5. We're live on AM, the mightier 1090 at 5 as well, just for your commute home. We broadcast to LA, Orange County, San Diego, and Santa Barbara. So if you're driving anywhere on the Southland, you can hear me at 5 o'clock on the mightier 1090. And always, wherever you get your podcasts, we are Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher. Make sure to head to LAFBNetwork.com for all of our great articles. We're pumping out like 30 articles a week, guys, on these teams. Plus, we do fantasy stuff, some betting articles. We got everything you need for LA football. Hope you guys have a phenomenal week. Appreciate you as always. Peace.